Welcome to Local Matters. Today, we begin in the town of Plymouth, best known for historical landmarks, breathtaking landscapes, and a vibrant restaurant and arts community, all attracting thousands of visitors each year. This year has been different for all of us, and See Plymouth's Executive Director Lee Filson joined Julie via Zoom to discuss the current state of tourism and where she sees it going from here. Hi, Julie.
Good morning, Lee Filson. So good to see you today.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for inviting me to be here today.
Excellent. If you could tell our audience, for those who don't know, all about See Plymouth.
Well, you've asked me to talk about my favorite subject, which is tourism in Plymouth, and that's what See Plymouth represents. You may remember us as either Destination Plymouth or Destination Plymouth County or the Plymouth County CVB, but upon my arriving, we decided to make it simple and make it match our website, which is See Plymouth, and we are now See Plymouth, but we still, of course, receive funding from all of those various places. I love talking about tourism because tourism is the number one industry in both the state and county of Plymouth. And so it's a very, very important thing to keep going. A lot of people think that we exist just to advertise various businesses, et cetera, but we honestly don't. Our job at See Plymouth is to promote the entire destination of Plymouth and Plymouth County.
Okay, so as a destination, what does that include? Aside from the obvious, you're going to go down to the waterfront, you're going to go to Plymouth Plantation, you're going to see all kinds of things. You're going to be involved in Plymouth 400. What are all the things that are involved in actually having Plymouth as a destination?
It's a chance for us to tell the entire region as well as nation what a special place that we live in. Not only are we in New England, but we have the water. We've got beautiful hiking trails. We've got cranberry bogs. We have so many things to tell people about, to invite them to come. The more people that come, the more money our businesses make. And not only that, but we also attract a lot of business to come here. So we're very much an economic development engine for both the county and the town of Plymouth.
True. Absolutely true. We also, do we not, fold into all these places that you can go and all these wonderful things you can see, the history that lies behind Plymouth. How important is that?
That is so important. I can't even begin to describe to you. Every other location in America has got all the things that you check off in the box, and we have all of those things too, all the things that bring families and bring couples and bring all sorts of people. But we have an added plus to that, especially throughout New England, but especially in Plymouth, and that's history, because this is where the Mayflower Pilgrims landed. It gives us a way to draw people to learn about the foundations of the nation, to learn about where they came from and how our nation was formed. History is just so important to this whole message of tourism.
Absolutely. And especially including the indigenous people who we've learned so much from and can learn so much from for the future. Absolutely. And I know that our museums often will reflect everything about the Plymouth history, which is it's a wonderful thing for us to do, and it's a needed thing for us to do. Now, during this pandemic, how has the tourism industry obviously been affected?
Well, the tourism industry has been affected horribly. We have taken the worst beating of any other industry in America. Everything is down to 10%, 20%, but at the very most 30% of what business normally is. And you can imagine that as we bring in these funds, they go to county taxes and state taxes and town taxes, and those are all collected. And that's going to affect everyone across the board, across the country.
Right. So if you could just kind of talk about heads and beds, what does that actually mean to the tourism dollars that were expected to come into Plymouth and are not here?
However many people stay, there is a tax that they pay that goes into county taxes, state taxes, and local taxes. And the fewer people that you have staying means the fewer amount of money those taxes raise. Not only that, but local businesses. We are not a huge place here. most of our businesses here are mom and pop businesses. And so it becomes even more important that we get as many people here to our destination as possible. So as we don't fulfill those goals, as the pandemic keeps people away, it hurts all of us very, very much. So our job becomes even more important at Sea Plymouth to try to keep us top of mind with every other destination in the region, the county, in America that is desperate to bring tourists back.
Right. And what strategies can Sea Plymouth use to actually draw the few people that have decided, yeah, I want to go on a vacation? What are the strategies that we use to invite them and make Plymouth seem like a really viable option?
Well, first of all, tourism has always been underfunded in the state of Massachusetts, in the county, in the town. So you have very little money to begin with to stay out there. So what we did at Sea Plymouth is in March, we cut off all funding, we canceled all ads, we canceled everything because we knew we had to pivot and figure out how we could stay in the public not only through this season, but into next season as well, because we're looking at a 2 or 3 year climb back to normalcy for tourism. So what we did was we took all of our money and we stretched it. We did fewer ads for this season. We put a bunch more ads in spring of next year so that we could try to recover from it and at least stay top of mind. But it isn't just us. The entire state legislature looked at it and realized also that tourism needed some help. So in the state, they have created a state campaign. I also am head of one of the regional tourism councils. There are 16 of us in the state. We're divided throughout the state to help to raise money and to keep tourism going in the Commonwealth. We also did a series of billboards across the state, including the one you see right here with Love from Plymouth. This is what ours look like. And those have been through the state and will be throughout the end of this month. The state campaign will last throughout the end of the year. Our campaign will go all the way into next spring. We're doing everything possible in order to keep tourism flowing during this time to the extent that it can.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was really, really well put. Are there any silver linings at all in terms of tourism for what has happened here in this pandemic?
Gosh, Julie, it's hard to look for silver linings when so many people have passed. So many people have gotten this disease, and the pandemic is going to cause many after effects through the years. So it's kind of tough to look at that. But if I had to find one silver lining in all of this, number one, our air is cleaner. Certainly, we've seen economic downfalls, but we've seen environmental upticks in how healthy our planet is. The other thing that I would say is that it allows us to take our Plymouth 400 events into next year as well. We will probably never get the amount of people that we were expecting for this year in 2020, but by moving those events into 2021, it will allow all those merchants who bought all that merchandise for our anniversary to still be able to sell some of it. So that plus the infrastructure that the state and the federal government was wonderful enough to give us is going to allow us to have a new dredged harbor to bring more and improve business. So there are some silver linings, although many of them were for Plymouth 400.
Right, right. And like you said, a lot of those events have been pushed to 2021, and those are things that we can look forward to in 2021. The other thing, too, that I've noticed, Lee, is that people tend to now focus far more on local. We're supporting each other's businesses. We're supporting each other's restaurants. We were tended to be a world that looked all over the place, and now we kind of have to look in our own backyard. And I find that that's revealing to the fact that we care about each other. And people in Plymouth, I think I would speak for you too, have really, really stepped up to help each other. Do you agree with that?
I would agree with that. People in Plymouth have stepped up to help each other immensely. But I will also say that to a great extent, they always have. One of the things I love about being in Plymouth more than anything else is the fact that people really do look out for each other here. And I have felt that since the day I got here. But of course, because of the pandemic, when you add fear to that of catching it and fear of spreading it and all of those other things, it kind of makes everybody want to stay at home across the country. And that's why we pivoted from an advertising campaign that was going many places to an advertising campaign that is just spent locally and regionally for now until we get past this.
Makes perfect sense. And just to wrap up, your last question is looking forward into 21 and 2022. Have you tried to make plans for that? Are you kind of pivoting as you go along?
Well, obviously, we've got to pivot as we go along, but yes, we have. That's one of the reasons that we stretched our advertising into the spring, because we weren't sure how much funding we would get, whether or not state funding would be cut off or Town of Plymouth funding would be cut off. But thank you to our town representatives for voting to keep our budget going, for the town at least, to keep promoting the town. It looks like the legislature is going to do the same, but we didn't know that. So we went ahead and changed those ads to then. But next year, in addition to just continuing to be top of mind across the area, we've got lots to look forward to here. We have Plymouth 400 events. We've got the new Mayflower Meeting House that will open again for tours as the restoration continues. We've got a brand new tea room coming that I just read an email about this morning, bringing me up to date on where they were with that. We have so many things, and we've added businesses, and we are trying very hard to support our businesses so that we don't lose anybody during this awful time. We hope to see lots of you out there for the rest of, until it gets really cold, and in next spring as well.
Absolutely. I'm with you. Okay, Lee Filson, who's the Executive Director of See Plymouth, thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie.
Back to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. To check out the official tourism site for the town and county of Plymouth, visit seeplymouth.com. Burial Hill, History in Progress is a free program presented by the Plymouth Antiquarian Society in collaboration with the Pilgrim Society and Pilgrim Hall Museum. This series of themed history expeditions on Burial Hill, one of America's oldest and most significant burying grounds, is usually offered on the first Saturday of every month. Due to public health concerns, these tours have now gone virtual, and October 3rd's video tour will include exciting insights into Plymouth's 17th century beginnings with Dr. David Landon, Associate Director of the Fisk Memorial Center for Archaeological Research. To watch, visit either the Pilgrim Hall Museum's or the Plymouth Antiquarian Society's Facebook page at 1 p.m. on Saturday, October 3rd for the live broadcast. And if you miss it, that's okay. The video tour will be saved on the pages for later viewing. Do you have questions? Email director@plymouthantiquarian.org or call 508-746-0012. On October 7th at 9:30 a.m., join Ms. Debbie for the virtual children's STEM program, I See Myself, Reflections, brought to you by the South Shore Community Action Council and the Duxbury Free Library. Through hands-on experiments, Ms. Debbie will teach kids all about reflections using everyday supplies you can find around your home. To sign up, visit the library's website. Megan Verdugo is a graphic designer, a baker, and an activist. She visited with the local scene to talk about how the pandemic has reshaped her world.
I work at Bay End Farm, and Kofi and Aaron run the farm, and they run an organic vegetable farm. And I do the baking in the kitchen for what we call the yin and the yang. So you get your organic vegetable, but then you also get your chocolate chip cookie. So you have the balance of, your needs. Baked goods, and we also sell pizza doughs and cheeses, and so you can basically buy everything you need to make a meal at the stand. COVID-19 has affected my work life because we all wear masks all the time. And so I wear a mask in the kitchen all the time, and it gets hot in the kitchen. But we do it because we want to be safe, and we have extra cleaning protocols at the farm stand. We have the farm stand set up outdoors so people can shop outdoors, and they can also purchase online and pick up orders that are packaged for them. So yeah, it's changed the farm stand incredibly. This moment in time has changed my plans in many ways because of my husband's furlough, because his furlough was extended to the end of the year just 2 days ago, and we will run out of unemployment assistance before the end of the furlough. So, we have some planning and figuring to do. What is something good that has come out of this experience for me? That's an interesting question. Well, I can say that I'm healthy-ish. I've gotten my family to cook more because I am needing a break from cooking. So that's good. It's always a good life skill, know how to cook. I think a good thing that's come out of this mess is that people are more tuned into what is broken in our justice system, in our policing, in our housing, in our healthcare, how healthcare shouldn't be tied into somebody's job, how the economy isn't the stock market. They're not the same thing. More people see that now, which is a good thing, and that can only hopefully lead to better, more progressive ways of being a country, being a democratic country, I should say.
That might be something I might say.
Right, but the us and them thing really bothers me. It's like it really bothers me. Aren't we all in this together? Aren't we?
We are, Megan, every one of us. Thank you for sharing your story. The Consortium on Gender, Security, and Human Rights is hosting a free 3-day virtual symposium on October 7th through October 9th, called Confronting the Climate Crisis: Feminist Pathways to Just and Sustainable Futures. The aim is to highlight critically important work by diverse feminist thinkers, including political economists and ecologists, outlining the sorts of solutions the climate crisis demands and proposing fundamental shifts in the dominant global economic model. Throughout, the focus will be on intersectional feminist analysis with an emphasis on global justice and sustainability. RSVP for the entire 5-session symposium, or register for individual sessions by visiting their website at genderandsecurity.org. The Pembroke Senior Center is hosting a socially distanced trunk or treat event on October 29th from 3 to 5 p.m. and are calling senior Halloween enthusiasts to decorate the trunks of your cars and bring candy to hand out to the children of Pembroke. Halloween looks different this year, but we can still make sure the kids have a good time. To volunteer, call 781-294-8220. Jennifer Matney is back with an all-new Food Positive. This time, she's giving you tips on how to keep yourself hydrated.
Hello, welcome back to Food Positive, where we explore all different kinds of nutrition topics so that we can take a good look at preventative health care and using food as medicine. Now today, we're going to be talking about the importance of hydration. And you might be saying to yourself, I know what I need to know about drinking water. I know it's important, and I know exactly how much I need each day. I'm all good, I'm all set. I think it's important to have a refresher every once in a while just to reorient ourselves and remind ourselves of these basic messages. That water is incredibly important to our bodies, how it affects our bodies, how much we need, and then we'll also be focusing on some of my favorite tips and tricks for making sure we hit that proper hydration each and every day. So there's a reason why healthcare experts often refer to water as vital or necessary, because water affects so many different processes in the body. For example, water helps keep our temperature steady via sweat. It also helps our body to break down and absorb nutrients from our food. And it also helps us to move those nutrients around as needed via the blood. For those of you who are really focused on sticking to a meal plan currently, water actually helps support that as well. So when we drink water, it helps to satiate us, or it helps to diminish those hunger pangs we might be feeling. And in that case, because we feel full, we don't consume food we don't need. In fact, the University of Washington did a study showing that about 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated, which is quite an astronomical number. And in this study, they showed that 1 glass of water shut down midnight hunger pangs for almost 100% of dieters studied, which is a huge amount. That's almost foolproof. So for those of you out there focused on sticking to your meal plan, you might be struggling, you might be having a rough time of it. Try drinking a glass of water before each meal or before each snack, and that will support you in feeling satiated, in shutting down the hunger, so you can focus on making those healthy choices for your body. So water is incredibly important, incredibly crucial for our bodies on a daily basis. All right, so you might be thinking to yourself, okay, let's do the whole refresher. How much water do I need on a daily basis? So most of you likely know what healthcare experts agree on, which is the number 8 to 12 cups of water a day, or 64 to 96 ounces of hydration. That's perfect for optimal health. You're good to go. What you might not be aware of though is maintaining your water budget. So when we consume beverages, for example, coffee or soda, those beverages, even energy drinks, right? Some parents out there, we might be reaching for those right now, especially with all the kids going back to school, to help get us through the day. And when we consume those beverages, they're diuretic beverages. So they're gonna leach that hydration from our bodies. So we wake up in the morning, we might reach for a cup of coffee, and then by mid-afternoon, we need a soda or an energy drink, or maybe another cup of coffee. We're leaching that vital water, that vital hydration from our bodies. So we want to make sure we consume our 8 to 12 cups of water each day, and we want to add in any additional water that we might need due to consuming some of those diuretic liquids. When it comes to drinking those 8 to 12 cups of water each day, especially for those of you who are not currently in the habit of doing so, that prospect might seem a little bit daunting. Don't worry, I have some great tips and tricks for you. First, I like to choose those times in my day that cue me to drink some water. For example, when I wake up in the morning, I drink a glass of water each and every day. I drink a glass of water before going to bed. I typically drink a glass of water before meals or before snacks. Sometimes when I'm having trouble reaching those 8 to 12 cups a day, I might consume some right when I get home or right before I leave the house. So it's important for you to get creative and find those cues in your life that are going to help you remember, let me take a break here and drink a cup of water. Now, my second tip is actually to get creative with your flavors of water. So first, I like to focus on herbal or green tea. Sometimes especially now that we're coming into autumn, I'm feeling the vibe of hot green tea or hot herbal tea. Or you can also brew your tea and then add ice and have a delicious, refreshing iced tea waiting for you. It's one of the best moments of the day. And then the third tip that I have is another flavor recommendation, which involves consuming fruit or vegetable water infusions. So this is actually kind of a typical thing at spas maybe, and you might think to yourself, that's too fancy, or I don't deserve that on a daily basis. And I am here to tell you that you do. You can add things like strawberries and blueberries and rosemary for a beautiful flavor, or you can do my favorite. It's easy, it lasts you all week. I do lime and lemon, mint and cucumber. And I keep the raw ingredients in my fridge. I don't make the water for the whole week, the infusion. But keeping those raw ingredients in my fridge, I'm able to go back and make the infusion every day or every other day or so. And it's super refreshing, super delicious, and it helps me get all of the 8 to 12 cups of water I need each day. Yeah, I highly recommend it. So those are my 3 tricks for making sure I reach those 8 to 12 cups each day. First, I choose cues in my schedule that help me remember to drink water on a regular basis. I might consume some herbal tea or green tea, or I might make my own little fruit, veggie water infusion, which is super refreshing. It helps for those individuals who are not in practice of drinking plain water on a regular basis. It'll help it taste more flavorful for you and encourage you to stick with that habit. So remember, water is incredibly important for our bodies. We need about 8 to 12 cups of water each day, but we want to make sure we're aware of our water budget and we're consuming additional water when we consume those diuretic beverages like coffee or alcohol even, or energy drinks. And we also want to keep in mind some of those tips and tricks so that we get those 8 to 12 cups of water and we don't feel like we're slamming our head against the wall. It feels very effortless and normal, and it helps us to solidify drinking water as a habit, which is a huge goal because we always want those healthy habits for preventative health care. So that's all for Food Positive for this week. If you have any questions, any burning nutrition questions you might have, please feel free to send them to the local scene or PAC TV, or send them along to myself. We want to be focused on those questions that you're interested in, and we would love to cover that information for you. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, Jen. Make your Halloween historical at the Hingham Historical Society's event, Haunted Hingham, a spooky walk through history. On a guided tour through historic sites, you'll meet some of Hingham's legendary characters, performed by actors from Company Theater. Your lantern-lit journey will lead you to the Hingham Cemetery, where storytellers share the true stories of the people who reside there. Tours take place every Friday and Saturday night in October and are limited to 12 people. This is a family-friendly event. Visit the Hingham Historical Society's website for more information. Cemetery experts, the Gravestone Girls, are offering Welcome to the Graveyard, Mattapoisett Cemeteries on October 8th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. On this free virtual tour, Brenda and her spooky crew will guide you through colonial burial grounds and discuss the origin of tombstones, how they got their look, and how gravestone art has changed over time. Questions are welcome at the end of the presentation. To register, visit the Mattapoisett Museum's website. The foundation of our future is our children. Together with the Concord Public Library, We the People, a Boston-based project run by 2 moms, is holding a What is Racism workshop designed for 2nd to 5th graders. Through hands-on activities, kids will learn about the spectrum of racism and the systems that keep racial injustice in place. Our children see what's going on in the world right now, and it's up to us to teach them why and what they can do to become part of the solution. To register, visit the library's website. Live concerts may be few and far between right now, but the Duxbury Senior Center is doing its best to keep the live music experience alive. On October 3rd from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m., join the center for a free outdoor concert in its new, renovated backyard. This performance features acclaimed violinist Dr. Cassandra Sulbaran and instrumentalist Carlos Sulbaran serenading you through a beautiful Saturday afternoon. The rain date for this event is October 10th. To register, email programs@duxburycoa.com. Food insecurity is an increasing problem in the United States. In Massachusetts alone, over 617,000 people struggle with hunger. So, what can we do? On October 5th, from 5 to 6 p.m., join PhD Lois Ellen Frank and Sean Sherman from the Sous Chefs for a conversation moderated by WCVB's Karen Holmes Walker. This virtual forum will discuss programs that inspire and sustain healthy eating in populations that need it the most, and detail the food inequities that descend through generations and throughout cultures. This free event is hosted by the Museum of Science, Boston. Visit their Facebook page to register. Today, we welcome Ace Gutierrez with the original song, I Saw You Walk Away.
When you're away, when you're no one word to express the fear that grows and grows with each new year. Hood hangs low, can barely see the person I am when you're away. scream, got no tongue to summarize all that's done. But all I know, feel for sure, the presence you make in me so pure when you're away. Is this what it's like to go out of my mind? I can see the shape your aura leaves behind. I can hear you now. I can hear you laughing. I can hear you breathing, although you're away. Away. Is this what it's like to go out of my mind? Away. I can hear you now. I can hear you laughing away.
Thank you, Ace, and thank you for watching this episode of Local Matters. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram to keep updated on local stories that impact you, because local matters. From all of us at PAC TV, have a happy and safe week. We'll see you next time.